Rajadiraj Nandana Mudabuga.
Building vibrant Vaishnava communities. And we cover different things, such as a little framework, how our acharyas approached community building, congregational development. We've seen a few quotes from Srila Prabhupada, there are many more. I like to think that some of you might have volunteered yourself to read those quotes maybe during the day. Then we discussed the sociological approach to religious organizations, successful religious organizations, how they have certain characteristics which distinguishes them from unsuccessful or groups that they were successful but they gradually decline and become much less lively, much less active. Then we discussed how congregational development, any form of preaching actually, depends really, or cultivation depends really on the vision, what we can see in the potential of the person. Then we saw that presentation by Kaunteya Prabhu, ISKCON membership and social development. He stresses the importance of groups. Without groups, it's very hard to have a real organization. And we have seen different examples from the history, Vaishnava history, and also secular history, the army, and so on. Then in the afternoon we talk a little bit about the characteristic of Bhakti Viksha and council groups. We have seen that there are many similarities. There are two different systems. There are similarity, but ultimately, really whatever works. I was telling one devotee last night how in our GBC strategic planning work, we have different, central themes, certain ideas that guide our work. But basically the most fundamental idea can be summarized in saying that the goal of all these strategic efforts are happier devotees and more devotees. So these four words, basically it encapsulates all the essence of the work, strategic work. Happier devotees means devotees which are happier. I mean, of course, to become happier cannot be an artificial process. They have to be more spiritually enlivened, more enthusiastic, more pure, more engaged, more knowledgeable, and also feel more supported, feel more socialized, and so on. And more devotees means, as a preaching mission, we have a mandate from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, that every man in this world, this universe, should accept this Krishna consciousness movement, should accept the fruits of the trees, of the tree of bhakti that he brought into this world, and give it to others. So it's a diffusion movement, it's an outreach movement. So these two are together. And then we have seen this PowerPoint about strong roots, and we had a discussion at the end about the 5 roots. I was glad to notice that although I only requested about 10 minutes work, some of you in pairs went for 20 minutes, 30 minutes even, some even touched almost 40 minutes of dialogue. Was that inspiring to you, discussing with other devotees? Anything that came out of that discussion that you like to share with everybody? Okay. So if there is nothing else, let's dive into the subjects of today. We start with this: community builders as cultural engineers. The basic message is that ISKCON leaders who are implementing community development, congregational development, they are actually acting consciously or unconsciously as cultural engineers. In other words, they create, they shape, they influence, they modify the local culture. And we'll see what we mean by culture. Mainly, we mean, in this context of this presentation, we mean three aspects of culture. One, the visible aspects, which can be called the artifacts, the norms, the lifestyle, things which are visible, even the way to dress, or the way to eat, to sit, to talk. That's like the visible aspects, the activities, you could say, the behaviors. Then there is an underlying level of culture, which is the philosophy. And by philosophy, I don't only mean the siddhanta, but the type of thoughts, the type of moods, and the type of, let's say, priorities that the community chooses for itself. It includes things like the strategy, the mission, the sense of mission. And even at a deeper level, often unconscious, subliminal level, there is the deepest and most influential aspect of culture, which is the underlying assumptions, the deep beliefs we have in the heart, which come from different reasons, the influence of the gunas, certain approaches to life. That's really the deepest mood, attitudes, categorizations we have in the mind. So that produces our practical priorities, our practical strategies, and those produce our activities. Okay? So being a leader means you will deal with all these three levels. So what is culture? The dictionary definitions. There are many dictionary definitions. I chose 5, which are kind of simple. First one, development or improvement of the mind by education or training. That is a culture person. A person who have improved himself or has become expert in a certain area through practice, through study, through association. And this is one of the meanings that Srila Prabhupada mostly uses when he talks about culture. This sense of cultivation of the human capacity, the human spirit, the human mind. Another definition, a particular form or stage of civilization, as that of a certain nation or period, like Greek culture. Okay. That's more like a historical definition, or geographical in some case. Chinese culture, like that. Their architecture, their language, like that. Then the behaviors and beliefs, characteristics of a particular social, ethnic, or age group, like the youth culture, the drug culture. No, youth culture. What music the youth like, how they dress, what they think, what they talk. basically the styles of a particular group. The predominating attitudes and behavior that characterize the functioning of a group or organization. You know, you hear often the expression corporate culture, and how different corporations, different companies work on their particular culture. That means on the attitudes and behavior that they want to see in that culture. Coca-Cola, Toyota culture, I mean, you heard about these things. Last, it's an anthropological definition, the sum total of ways of living built up by a group of human beings and transmitted from one generation to another. Different people live in different ways, eat in different ways, build their houses in different ways, and so on. And they do transmit that culture to the next generation. So the sum total of ways of living. This is a very complete, very encompassing definition. Okay, so that's the basic definition of what is culture. Okay? Now let's see some Srila Prabhupada's definitions, especially definitions of Vedic culture, but in general, other definitions too. I just chose few because I didn't want this slideshow to become an encyclopedia. Bombay 75. Animal culture means to satisfy the needs of the body. And Vedic culture or human culture means to satisfy the needs of the soul. Nice sutra, no? Bombay, another one, years before. People are engaged in vikarma everywhere, all over the world. The education, the scientific advancement, culture, everything. Now culture means some dancing. Now it has become a culture. And what is that dancing? Sense gratification. So he's attacking this idea. Of course, there is a definition of culture, even dance is part of it. But he's saying, in other words, culture, what I read, what Srila Prabhupada was saying, should be, again, cultivating something higher. Two people dancing, one boy, one girl dancing, shaking their bodies. No, there is no development, there is no evolution. There is no emancipation. It's just a form of entertainment. Bhuvaneshwar, 77. Vedic culture means to execute the Varnashram Dharma. So if we unpack this Varnashram Dharma, there are 4 ashramas, 4 stages of life, and 4 occupational duties. So when we apply that, as strictly as possible, according to the Shastra, that's Vedic culture. That's one definition. Another definition, Srimad Bhagavatam, Los Angeles, 72. Vedic culture means everyone is given the chance to become first-class Brahmana. This is very relevant to the work at hand. Given the chance to become first-class Brahmana. Some people will take it, some people won't. Srimad Bhagavatam, London, 71. Vedic culture is very old. It is not a concocted thing or a new pattern. It is eternal. Therefore it's called Sanatan. Sanatan means eternal. It has no beginning, no end. Sanatan. So Vedic culture means Sanatan, eternal. Krishna is eternal. We living entities. We are eternal. And our relationship and exchange of loving service with Krishna is also eternal. So just like there is a Greek culture, a Chinese culture, African culture, so there is a Goloka Vrindavan culture. There's a way